Somewhere between the last dish in the sink and the moment your head hits the pillow, your body starts a process most people have never heard explained correctly, one that has almost nothing to do with how tired you feel and everything to do with the clock ticking inside you that doesn't care what time your phone says it is. There's a specific hormone involved, a specific window it depends on, and a specific mistake almost everyone makes without realizing it's a mistake at all. That mistake is sitting in nearly every home right now, usually within arm's reach of the couch, and it's rarely the one people expect. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is and exactly what to do instead, starting tonight. But first, here's something that tends to surprise people more than anything else in this video. Your body has already decided, on its own, that your evenings should start earlier than they used to. Not because of a Japanese secret, not because of some ritual, but because of something that happens to nearly everyone somewhere around 60, whether anyone tells them about it or not. Let's start there, because it changes how you should think about everything that follows. Research tracking sleep with movement sensors has consistently found that people shift toward falling asleep and waking up earlier as they move into their 60s. This isn't a preference or a personality trait. It's a measurable change in the body's internal clock. The same kind of shift that made teenagers naturally want to stay up later, just running in the opposite direction decades later. Which raises an obvious question. If your body is already trying to move earlier, why does 9 o'clock so often turn into 10:30, then 11, without anyone deciding that on purpose? The answer is the part almost nobody explains clearly, and it's the reason this video exists. Here's the action to take immediately. Before we even get to why, pick one cutoff time tonight, somewhere between 9 and 9:30 p.m., after which there's no more food and no more screens. Hold that same time on weekends too. The explanation is coming, but start the habit now rather than waiting for the full picture, since a body that gets a consistent signal 7 nights a week adjusts far more reliably than one that resets every Friday. Now here's what's actually happening in the hour after that cutoff, hour by hour, starting with something most people have completely backward. I've written a guide that compiles the daily habits Japanese women have followed for generations to age more slowly, stay active, and maintain healthy skin and a strong body well into their 80s. It's called Still Young in Japan, and I'd love to help you do the same. Right now, the guide is 98 pages long, but everyone who purchases it this month will receive all new chapters added over the next few weeks completely free of charge. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy and start aging on your own terms today. The first thing working against you at this hour is digestion, and it's rarely mentioned in the way that actually matters. Eating a full meal shortly before lying down doesn't just risk mild discomfort. It asks your body to run active digestion at the exact moment it's supposed to be winding down. Two demanding processes competing for the same resources. Research from Japan specifically examined the gap between dinner and sleep in relation to blood sugar control, finding that a buffer of roughly 2 hours was associated with better long-term markers like HbA1c than eating right before bed. The action here is direct. Finish dinner by a set time, and treat the following 2 hours as off-limits for anything beyond water. If a full 2 hours isn't realistic some nights, even 90 minutes is a meaningful improvement over nothing at all, and choosing a lighter version of a late meal is a reasonable second-best option when timing genuinely can't be helped. This one adjustment alone, without changing anything else on this list, is often enough for people to notice a difference in how heavy or restless the first hour of sleep feels. It's a change worth trying, before assuming anything more complicated is needed. The second thing happening, and possibly the detail that explains more disrupted sleep than anything else in this list, is hormonal. Melatonin, the hormone responsible for signaling sleep to your body, begins rising in the evening as light fades, and its release is extremely sensitive to light, especially the blue light emitted by phones, tablets, and televisions. This is where the real mistake hides. Checking a phone at 9:30 doesn't just distract you from going to bed, it actively suppresses the exact hormone your body needs to feel sleepy at a reasonable hour, working directly against a process it already started. The action is specific. The phone needs to physically leave the room, not just sit face down nearby, starting 30 minutes before your target bedtime. If it has to stay close for a genuine reason, switching it to night mode and turning the screen away reduces the effect considerably, even if it's not quite as effective as removing it entirely. It's worth being honest that this is usually the single hardest habit on the list to keep, precisely because a phone rarely feels optional in the moment, which is exactly why it deserves to be the first thing you commit to, rather than the last. The third thing worth understanding only becomes obvious once you know to look for it. Not all sleep is created equal, and when you fall asleep, changes what kind of sleep you actually get. Deep, slow wave sleep, the stage most associated with physical repair and growth hormone release, is concentrated in the earlier part of a typical night rather than spread evenly across it. Sleeping the same total number of hours, but starting 2 hours later, doesn't give you an identical night. Even though the math on paper looks the same, the action here is to anchor a consistent bedtime rather than chasing a specific hour count, treating that time with the same seriousness you'd give an early appointment you wouldn't casually move. This is also the point where a lot of people quietly undermine their own progress by staying consistent on weekdays and then sleeping in and staying up late on weekends, only to spend most of Monday feeling like the whole week has to start over again. The fourth thing deserves honesty rather than alarm because it's often mistaken for a personal failure. Many people over 60 experience lighter, more easily interrupted sleep, with more brief awakenings than they had decades earlier, many of which aren't even remembered by morning. This is a normal part of how sleep architecture changes with age, not evidence that anything above is being done wrong. It's worth repeating that clearly, since it's easy to read a list like this one and assume every disrupted night is a sign of failure somewhere on it. If you wake in the night, the action worth taking is resisting the pull to check the time or reach for a phone, both of which tend to fully wake a mind still hovering near sleep, and simply staying still in the dark for a few minutes first. If disruption becomes severe, persistent, or comes with loud snoring, gasping, or extreme daytime exhaustion, that's worth raising with a doctor, since treatable conditions like sleep apnea become more common with age. The fifth action, simple and constantly overlooked, is dimming actual household lighting, not just screens. Starting around the same time as your phone cutoff, overhead lights in most homes are far brighter than what supports melatonin release. Switching to a lamp or lower lighting for the final hour gives your body one more consistent cue that the day is ending, and it only requires dimming the room you're in, not the whole house, which matters if other people in your home want to stay up later than you. One more habit worth naming, common in many Japanese households and genuinely useful anywhere: a warm bath or shower in the hour before bed. The point isn't cleanliness. It's the drop in body temperature that follows as you cool down afterward, which is associated with an easier transition into sleep. The action is simple. Move a shower to the evening, a few nights this week, timed to finish roughly an hour before bed, and notice whether falling asleep feels different. Comfortably warm water is enough. A long soak isn't required, and this works just as well as a quick, practical shower as it does as anything more elaborate. None of this needs to happen perfectly every night to matter, and trying to adopt all 5 actions simultaneously is a common way this whole idea gets abandoned within a week. If only one thing survives a chaotic evening, make it the phone leaving the room 30 minutes before bed. It costs nothing, interferes with no one else's schedule, and targets the single hormone most responsible for whether your body feels ready to rest at a reasonable hour rather than 2 or 3 hours later than it wanted to. None of this is about crediting one culture with discovering sleep. The research spans Japanese studies on meal timing alongside international research on melatonin and sleep architecture that applies to bodies everywhere, regardless of where someone lives or what their evening routine has looked like up to now. What's genuinely useful is simpler than any of that. Your clock is already shifting earlier, whether you cooperate with it or fight it every single night. And every night spent fighting it is a night spent working against something your own body is already trying to do for you. Tonight, choose just one action from this list rather than attempting all of them at once. Done consistently for a week, any single one will teach you more about your own sleep than a complete overhaul abandoned by Wednesday. And if you're wondering which one to start with, go back to that mistake mentioned at the very beginning. It's still sitting there within arm's reach, waiting for 9:30 to arrive so it can quietly undo everything else on this list. Healthy aging was never about sleeping more out of obligation. It's about finally getting out of the way of a body that's already been trying to help you, one quiet hour at a time.